Today's guest started his brokerage just 10 months ago and he's already surpassed $1 million in sales. Let me introduce you to today's guest. Let me bring him up on stage. Welcome. This is Ajmal Barakzai. I think I got that correct.
You got it right.
Awesome. First of all, congratulations. A huge congratulations is in order. Secondly, thank you for your service, right? That should never go without being said. That should never be looked at lightly. Thank you so much. Now, today we're here to talk a little bit about your success and how you were able to do that. I'm going to ask you a few questions and we'll just kind of roll through it. So when and how did you get the idea to become a freight broker?
So Dennis, last year around November time, when I got out of the Army, I was looking into a couple of different industries to go into. And a friend of mine called this one afternoon, and he has a small motor carrier company. And he tells me, so what's going on? What do you have on your plate right now? And he tells me this thing about freight brokers. I had no idea, never heard the name before. So I said, okay, I will look into it. Despite the fact that my friend gave me the idea, but he also told me he doesn't know what they make, how they do this, but he knows there's a lot of work in that that industry. So that's how it started. Started researching, within the first week, I found the freight brokers boot camp, which I'm very happy that I found it. The rest is, where it got me to this point.
So you got the idea in November. You enrolled in Freight Broker Bootcamp. When did your Freight Broker Authority go active? Was it January, I think you said?
Correct, mid-January this year.
Mid-January, your authority went live mid-January. So you acted quickly. You went through the training. You took action. You filed for your authority. And then tell me what happened. What from January 15th, how long did it take you to get your first customer?
So the first customer I got was after, I think, and it was in mid-May. So about 4 months into being in the business.
4 months, guys.
4 months, yes.
4 months. It didn't happen day one, week one, even month one. 4 months. Now, there's probably some reasons for that. Maybe you were tied up with other stuff. Tell us a little bit about that story and what you learned during that 4 months of getting that first customer.
And you're right. I was in the middle of doing a transitioning from the Army, obviously, and I started my family. So I had our second child and things like that. So it was a lot. I was busy in personal life, and I was also taking these classes. And I also, after Freight Broker Bootcamp, I took the Sales Accelerator class and the no cold calling class as well.
When did you take that? What month did you sign up for that, the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator?
I don't remember the exact month. I think it was probably in May or April.
Okay. All right. Yes. April or May. Okay, great. Okay. All right. I think it was April because I think that's when I did that cohort. All right. Awesome. You signed up. You got a little busy with your personal life. Tell us about that first shipper. How did you come across it? Was it a referral? Was it a cold call? Was it LinkedIn? I mean, how did you end up getting that first shipper?
So my first shipper was through LinkedIn. I have to tell you, I haven't made a zero cold call yet.
What?
I may do it in the future, but so far I haven't. I haven't picked up my phone to call anybody because I'm not good at it, and there's other reasons I don't want to cold call. So my first customer I got was in, I believe I started the conversation in late April, and in mid-May he sent me a message saying, "Okay, I'll give you a try, and let's see how you do." And his try was 20 loads per day. Found the shipper, and then the whole different thing being started. I was not having credit, being a new broker. So got over it, and we're good with credit, and have about 5 shippers today.
So your first customer came through just a LinkedIn conversation that you started with a shipper, and that turned into an opportunity where you could move up to 20 loads a day. And then all of a sudden you went from the frying pan into the fire, right? Because now all of a sudden you got to handle all these operational issues. You got to deal with credit. You got to deal with finding carriers and rating and dispatching drivers and the whole real fulfillment side of the business, right? Yes. So you started navigating that. How many loads did you do? Maybe that roughly guesstimate of that first 30 days with that first shipper?
Not a lot. Probably did about 10 to 15 loads. And despite the fact I had a lot of load requests coming into our business, but I couldn't cover it. So I think maybe 15, 20 max.
Yeah. That's not uncommon, guys. I mean, that's actually really good for a first month shipper to do 15 or 20 loads. It wouldn't be uncommon for a first shipper to do a load a week, 2 loads a week until they really can trust you and start building that rapport and that trust and that relationship where they can start leaning on you more. But then it can ramp up very rapidly. Okay, great. So that was your first customer. So tell us a little bit about kind of how the business has evolved since that first customer. You did maybe 10 to 20 loads your first month. How many, approximately, what did you do in business in October? Like roughly how many loads and revenue profit? Do you have that basic, anything to share with us there?
In October, I did about 100 loads, or a little more than 100 loads in October.
100 loads in
Yeah,
October. And roughly how
yeah.
much is that in sales, gross
Uh,
sales?
Probably say around 200,000.
200,000 in sales in October. And roughly how much gross profit?
Between 15 to 30%.
Okay. So if you average it out at 20, and I'm not very good at math and it's not an exact science, but 200,000 times 20%, that's 40 grand in gross profit. Do you have a whole bunch of employees?
I don't.
Do you have a big office space?
I have no, not just a small little
Do you
office.
have a lot of overhead?
Decent, I'd say, not a whole lot, but yes, I
Yeah.
have
So
overhead.
on $40,000, let's just say that a whole lot of that's going right in the Hip National Bank, or you're going to reinvest it back into the business.
I plan to reinvest it into the
Yes, I
business.
love it. Okay, good. I just wanted people to understand that in less than 10 months, I mean, from less than 10 months from getting your first shipper, because you didn't get your first shipper till start shipping till May, mid-May, you said.
Mid-May.
So you got June, July, August, September, October, right? So we're talking 4 or 5 months, 5 months. And then within 5 months, you're doing $200,000 in business in 1 month. So it can ramp up very quickly. Now, you said a few minutes ago that you think you have 5 active shippers right now.
Correct.
Right. So that's the other thing I want you to understand. I want to dispel this myth. You don't need hundreds of customers in order to make a good income as a freight broker. I mean, Ajmal is a testament to that. And he's got 5 shippers and he just did $40,000 roughly, ballpark $40,000 in gross profit in 1 month with 5 shippers. Okay. So let's pull it apart a little bit, right? Because you came from military background, you jumped into the industry feet head first, and you just went after it. This first 10 months, all right, the first 10 months in the business, what do you think is the biggest lesson you learned during that first 10 months? If you had to narrow it down to the number one thing that you learned about becoming a successful freight broker, what it ultimately takes to become a successful freight broker, what do you think that would be?
If I narrow it down to one thing, and that's, I'll say, be reliable. That's how I've learned. Be reliable to your customers, be reliable to your carriers, and if you have agents or employees, be reliable, and it pays off. I have customers. When I started my relationship with them at the beginning, they were wary of it. They would call me every 2 hours or 3 hours. Hey, what's the status and this and that. Now they don't do that. They hand me these projects and they say, go about it, and they know their loads will be delivered on time. They know that I'll send them updates, as required. So as outside, be reliable.
Yeah, I did a training recently, and the training was, what do shippers want? Okay. And that was kind of the framework of what do shippers want from a freight broker? And the number one thing on that list is accountability. Okay. Which goes hand in hand with reliability, right? You need to be reliable. You need to be accountable. You need to do what you say you're going to do. Here's the good news. You do not need to be an absolute rock star in order to make money in this business, but you do have to do what you say you're going to do. And that comes down to not overcommitting. And you've probably heard me say it a million times, under promise, over deliver. That's what a shipper wants. If you go the other way and you over promise and under deliver, they're going to pull back, or they're going to delay the future expansion, or they're going to find somebody else, right? So under promise, over deliver, be reliable. You heard it directly from Ajmal. All right, great. So on the customer acquisition side, on the sales side, let me ask you, what are you doing now? You said you're not cold calling. What are you still using predominantly LinkedIn, or what other methods are you using to do outreach to new prospects, new shippers?
predominantly LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I also use, and obviously I have my own website. We have our own website. We have
Mm-hmm.
and we're thinking about going into Google Ads and stuff like that. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, predominantly LinkedIn.
So you've built this brokerage with no
Yep.
cold calls and you're doing LinkedIn. So give us a very brief kind of a framework on how you get customers using LinkedIn. How do you identify them? How do you reach out to them? How do you convert that conversation offline? What does that look like? Because everybody's approach is a little bit different. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. You probably know that. I hadn't made a cold call since in the brokerage in many years. So ultimately, tell us a little bit, just a few steps on what you do to get customers with LinkedIn.
So I use a database of leads that I have. Actually, I've got it from the Sales Accelerator class.
Okay.
I think it was on the boot camp as well. So
yes,
I have about 400,000, of those leads on the list.
Yep.
So what I do is I look for the leads that that are within my niche in that database, transfer that. And for example, if it's a company, I go into LinkedIn, look for decision makers for that company. And if I can find someone specifically for the shipping department or for the freight department, I would do that. And so reach out. Once I identify them, I have this engagement cadence that I start practicing after I
that you
identify.
learned in the no cold calling program.
Yes, I did. So using that cadence, I reach out to, first of all, and I try to connect with them. And I always try to connect with them. And I use a method for that as well, because not everybody will accept your connect request. So I'll do that. After I start building some sort of relationship with the person, after a few messages or a few engagements back and forth, sometime not back and forth one way, but regardless, and I'll pitch them the idea of what I do and how I can help them, and ask them a couple of questions. So that's basically the method I've been using.
Yeah,
And I've been sending messages. I've been sending a lot of messages. It's not easy, I'll be honest. I could say I've been sending maybe 100 messages a day. You probably get one or two replies, or a lot of thank you, which that's it. But one or two good replies, and I stick with it.
Yeah, but the good news is that you apparently are either adverse to or don't like cold calling, or you don't like picking up the phone and just randomly calling and interrupting somebody in the middle of their day. You're just not comfortable with it, at least to this point. So you had an alternative, right? You had an alternative. Yes. And what you described to me is just a very simple process, right? But it is a process. You're not just randomly going on LinkedIn and sending some random connection requests or beating people over the head with your pitch. You're following my basic social selling framework, right? And I would urge you that if you really want to grow at some point, when you want to scale, then we should put some of that Freight Broker Sales Accelerator training to work and start figuring out and start doing a little bit more outreach beyond just LinkedIn. Because I'm a huge believer in having a multi-channel outreach approach. You know that for sure. I recommend phone and LinkedIn and email and even face-to-face. I mean, that's 4 different channels. You're literally going to quadruple your chances of success if you adopt a multi-channel outreach approach. And that's an important part of Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. And in order to be a part of that, you are going to have to get on the wait list, just like Ajmal did. Okay. He was a part of that program. You have to get on the wait list. The spots are very limited to 100 people. Okay. It will sell out in a few days. All right. I don't know about this time, but I know statistically it sells out within 3 to 5 days. I've had it sell out in as quick as 24 hours. Okay. So, or not 24, 48 hours. I've had it sell out as quickly as 48 hours. So get on the wait list right now. That is where I take this piece of my brain and I teach you everything I know about my best freight broker sales strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, the system. Winning in sales, winning as a freight broker, winning as a freight agent is not about having the perfect script. Okay. Everybody asks me, what's the right sales script? there is no one size fits all sales script. You have to understand the fundamentals of sales and how it works. And that's what I teach you. It's a hybrid program with a course and coaching. It's a 5-week coaching program where I coach you personally for 5 weeks. Okay. So get on the wait list if that's something that you think you need some help with. All right, great. So Ajmal, is there anything else you want to share about the startup? Are people that are just looking to get started and they haven't quite start making those first calls, they maybe don't have their authority, or they just got their authority and they feel the stress of cash flow because now they've got some expenses? What would be your biggest piece of advice to them? You know, if you had to summarize it down to one or two things, what advice would you give them during this startup phase, the first 30, 60, 90 days in order to start seeing some success?
I think in the beginning, the biggest advice anybody could give me at the time was don't get discouraged. There's a process. The process is not easy. You know, there's a lot of hurdles, challenges that you will face, but don't get discouraged. Stick around long enough. I promise you, and I guarantee you that you will, you know, obviously with the right discipline and regimen, you will find that first shipper. So don't get discouraged, and learn as much as you can in the beginning. Because once you are in that fire, it's you learn from experience, obviously, but it's hard to find time to go out and take these courses, these seminars. And so I say, when you have that opportunity, when you're still looking for your first shipper, or when you're establishing your company, try to learn as much as you can about the industry, and it will pay off in the long run.
I love that. And here's why, because I get students and people just randomly find my YouTube videos and will message me and say, oh, you know, I've been making lots of cold calls for a few days or for a week or for a month, and I'm really discouraged and I don't think this is going to work for me, or freight brokerage sucks, this doesn't work. And that advice that you just gave them, which is you have to be patient. You gotta go through this early process. Some people are going to get their customers week one, their first customer. Some people it's going to take a month or two. But many of the students that I've had on here, as far as student success interviews, it took months, including Ajmal, months to get his first shipment. But then look what happened. From May to now, he's done $1 million in sales. And in October, in the last month, he did 100 loads and over $200,000 in sales. You got to stay in it long enough, right, to let your learning curve fall into place, because it doesn't always happen. You know, it's not the Cinderella story, you know, where everybody just shoots out of a cannon. That doesn't happen that often. The story of Ajmal is the story of a lot of the Freight Broker Bootcamp students that have went on to see success. They got their authority. They had no experience. They got their authority. They struggled for the first few months. And then eventually they got a shipper, and that shipper parlayed into other shippers, and those shippers parlayed into a multi-6-figure or even a 7-figure income. So all I can tell you is this, you know, if you are curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're trying to piece together YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Google, and you're trying to piece all that together, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. If you're just looking to get started, we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money back guarantee. If you're not happy, we'll send you your money back. Now, if you're looking to get startup. If you're already in the startup mode and you're struggling to get customers and you're struggling to get cash flow and you haven't got that first shipper, I can't make it any easier. You can't get any better timing. Get on the wait list, because if you're not on the wait list, there's zero chance you're going to be able to be a part of the program. It's not a free program. It's a paid program. But if you get on there, I promise you, the return on investment for Ajmal has been enormous, right? He invested $1,000, I think it was, probably into the course. And you can see now that last month he did over $40,000 in profit. Now that was, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. I would put the majority of that benefit and the majority of that success on Ajmal, but without a little bit of guidance, without a little bit of confidence, without a little bit of a system, you know, I'm not sure that he would have saw the exact same success. So make sure you get on the wait list. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you join us for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live every Monday at noon.